you are kind of known as the legendary running back, good guy. You know, you wrote these big soliloquies on at Roto World the last couple of years, like kind of breaking down like the range of outcomes for like the top high end running backs, which is fun because you are part of the ship chasing crew, guys that generally are not going to draft any of these guys in any leagues, which is kind of a fun dynamic. And there might be a reason for that because you dig into all these guys to that degree. But first, like let everyone kind of know like what the kind of thesis of those articles are, like what a legendary running back is, and we'll kind of take it from there and kind of talk about some of this a little bit.
Yeah, so the idea behind the legendary running back series, like basically I defined it as, you're looking for these running back seasons that are 23 plus points per game, minimum 12 games played. That's kind of the arbitrary thresholds that I used. And, but technically then Jonathan Taylor didn't have a legendary running back season last year, but he kind of did, so what you're basically trying to find is who's going to be that running back that just absolutely separates from the rest of the pack and does so in a really dramatic way. And the reason I wanted to kind of quantify this and get into this idea with these articles is that, I think people maybe don't quite fully understand the dynamics at play with early round running backs. Mm-hmm. And the way you win your league is, if you have a Jonathan Taylor or often a guy who has an even better season than Taylor's 2021, you're getting a very high scoring player at a position that's generally not scoring a ton of points week in, week out from those early drafted guys, because we see a lot of bust rates from those early drafted running backs, but we also see outcomes like Ezekiel Elliott last year. And that type of outcome, the outcome where you get a guy with a top 5 pick and he scores well below 20 points per game, that really hurts you. One, because, you didn't get the Jonathan Taylor breakout guy, but you also are giving up a ton of opportunity cost at wide receiver, at tight end. So you want to be thinking through the bet you're making. And the bet you're making is basically, I'm going to find this game breaker at the running back position. I do think that if you can have a good chance of getting that game-breaking running back, is very much worth taking a running back in the first couple of rounds. I actually, as much as, I am a ship chaser, my favorite type of build is anchor running back, where you take your one shot on, I think this guy's going to be a legend, and then you build a really strong team around that running back. And this is why, because you see these running backs, they do have this type of ceiling, and it's a ceiling that we generally don't find even at the wide receiver position. Like Cooper Kupp aside, you're not really getting like a 25 plus point per game season from a wide receiver. And, with kind of vintage Christian McCaffery, we were getting that. So, I do think you want to think through the bet you're actually making at running back, really understanding you're looking for a specific type of mega ceiling. Only certain profiles are going to fit that, really.
Yeah. Everyone knows I'm a big fan of the anchor RB build because it's kind of like, having your cake and eating it too if you do it right. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the thing. You get like the benefits of the legendary running back season, and then kind of the benefits of what you get from like an anti-fragile build. It's kind of double dipping, but you still are prone to the fragility of having those guys that hit. If you were someone that took Jonathan Taylor right now and did an anchor build, not looking so hot right now. And running backs, the first couple weeks look really bad. Early running backs. We've had some kind of recoil here, and they've rebounded a little bit the past couple weeks. But as the landscape is gone now for 5 weeks, I mean, do we have anyone that is looking like a legendary running back at this point, or anybody that you believe, big picture is kind of, trending towards that?
I think the two best candidates are Saquon Barkley and Austin Ekeler. Both of them have, pretty strong workloads, and both have been very efficient. I think Barkley's probably the best candidate. He's had expected points per PFF of 18.1 points per game. He's playing efficiently. He's involved as a receiver. The whole offense is kind of built around him. I think they're a well-coached team. They're getting enough decent quarterback play. Daniel Jones' accuracy has actually been fairly impressive. They don't have, I think Barkley would be better off if they could get some receivers to help move the chains a little bit more. And maybe they will with Wan'Dale Robinson starting to turn in the right direction. Maybe we get Tony eventually. So I think Barkley's probably the best bet right now. But yeah, it's been kind of a disappointing running back landscape overall. I think just the Panthers being as bad as they've been has been really tough. McCaffrey does lead all running backs with an 86% snap share, all running backs with a 23% target share. So I still think he has an outside chance, like if the Panthers can get it together a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he has just been really, really hampered by his overall situation. But the profile we were banking on actually has been there for McCaffrey. You just need a lot of things to go right in order for a running back to produce one of these seasons, which is why they're hard to find.
Yeah, Carolina is one of these teams that, just isn't running any plays at all, and they're not getting to the red zone at all. They've run 4 plays inside the opponent's 10-yard line through 5 weeks. That's not how you score touchdowns if you're a running back, unless you're Austin Ekeler, apparently. Ekeler himself is one of the more unique players, I think, of our generation. We just maybe have to throw some stuff out the window with him that just doesn't apply to other running backs because he doesn't get like a ton of touches, and then he's conceding touches inside like the money zone, but then he's probably the most efficient pass catching receiver we've had since Marshall Faulk. Apparently he's just going to get all these 3-pointers, right? Like all his touchdowns are from 10 yards or further now this year. Just one of these players that just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but makes all the sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's just a unique guy, man. And he loves fantasy football. So we got to give him a little tip of the cap, but you only rattling off 2 names. There were a lot more than 2 running backs drafted in the top 2 rounds, and especially the first round. Is this something you've seen as you've done this piece for a couple of years, a trend that maybe the legendary running back is, we don't want to say dying, but like is dwindling down?
So I think one of the issues with this year's particular crop of running backs is that looking at the running backs who have had these types of seasons, they're almost all 25 or younger. Because again, like in general, you cannot really ask for a running back to have a workload worth 23 plus points per game. Like that's nuts. Joe Mixon had that through week 4, but he's now dropped below that. And you're just never really going to see it. So, okay, if the workload's worth less than 23 points per game, what's the rest? It's efficiency. So you need a guy on a huge workload that can then produce efficiently. Generally, those guys are going to be the young, like completely in their prime, not like at the very beginning of tailing off. Like they are completely in their prime. They're superstar talents. And it's just like so much harder to be that kind of talent, as you age. I think you can, of course, at 26, 27, produce a season like this. But in general, I'd be more interested in the receiving backs in that mold because it's just going to be easier to rack up points through receptions. I think Leonard Fournette can still, as we saw last week, have a huge weekly ceiling, in part because he can just, he had 11 targets last week, so if you can rack up that type of volume, then, that gives you an access to a ceiling that maybe you don't have through like sheer breakaway ability, elusiveness anymore, stuff like that. So I do think that this year's crop was like particularly fragile because like even guys like Dalvin Cook were older than we wanted. Yep. It wasn't just Derrick Henry, it was like Aaron Jones is like 27 going 28. So a lot of the guys that we wanted, they're just a bit older. And, we're starting to see maybe Breece Hall kind of emerge as someone who's like got an outside shot. Maybe he won't have a true legendary season as I defined it, but he could come on down the stretch and be that guy like David Johnson's rookie year where you're just like, you had to have him. So, I think maybe a little bit of a transition year at the running back position.
Yeah, outside of the age thing too, something that I wrote about in the offseason was just the multi-year run of just running backs not being used as pass catchers. And like we've seen just running back receiving just continuously year after year, it keeps going down. And I had a tweet a couple of days ago on my timeline that showed the running back receiving through 5 weeks of the last decade. And it's once again trending down. Last year, we only had 2 running backs that were in the top 12 of both receiving and rushing points per game. And this year we don't have any through 5 weeks. So yeah, it's been really tough to get kind of like those big dual threat guys. Now, like there are still guys catching passes and it matters. And having the RB1 in context of any season matters. Like remember when Devontae Freeman was like the lowest scoring RB1 ever, he still was the RB1 that year and he mattered. just like Jonathan Taylor last year.